Hi guys, in today's video tutorial I'm going to step you through how to prep a CAD drawing that you might receive after designing and bring it into your field controller. This is with the view to bringing it into Leica ICON. However, the methods and tools and workflow we will be showing you is transferable whether it's into Leica Captivate or an alternative field software. I have put together a workflow you can see here on the screen, and it takes the information going right from the drawing provider right down into exporting as a DXF and into your field controller. You can see there are multiple choice options along the way because there is going to be variances with the drawings that you are receiving. This will work for the majority of files that you guys receive. However, there could be some instances where you do have to repeat one of the steps or even go a step further again. For today's tutorial, I am going to be using Micrsurvey CAD. So what we'll do first is we'll just open our CAD drawing. So we will just specify the general configuration options there. So we just want to make sure that it's metric. So we select OK. Okay, so we can see our drawing here. So the first step within the drawing workflow would be to ID a point. So all we'll do by starting is selecting ID, enter. We will select a point on our drawing. I'll just expand it. So we can see there we have an X value and a Y value. The first thing that I would notice is that there's 9 digits in front of the decimal point, which generally specifies the drawing is in millimeters and not meters. We will confirm this by taking the distance in our next step. But first, before we move on to that, I just want to note we need to understand coordinate reference system. So is our drawing reference, is it relative to a national grid that's transferable so we can locate our objects relative to each other within the site? So the first step within IDing the point will give us an indicator whether the drawing is in millimeters, meters, but the real issue is for it to specify whether the drawing is referenced or not. So what coordinate reference system is used? So I know by identifying that point and looking at the figure starting with 7 and 7 that I'm currently working within Irish Transverse Mercator. So this is a good first step to kind of have a good feel for things, especially if you're using GPS on site, because you will need to specify the coordinate reference system that you are using. If you have trouble understanding coordinate reference systems or you struggle to identify which one you are using, we will be putting up a further video where we go through coordinate reference system, a brief explanation, and also identifying which coordinate reference systems are used in Ireland today. So following on from IDing our point, our next step within the workflow is to take a distance. So if I just type dist, enter. Generally what I say is I'll go to say between 2 grid lines and I'll record a distance, and I can clearly see 7,500 between 2 grid lines, which we probably will all know just from general knowledge and understanding that that's meant to be a 7.5 meter grid interval. So we've now confirmed that our drawing is in millimeters and not meters. So this is a good first step. So we need to understand our drawing before we import it into our field controller. It is not an issue with the drawing being millimeters or meters because we have in our import configurations within our field software the option to specify what unit the drawing is in. So it's a good first step. So what we can do then is within the framework then we have an option, say, do we want to scale our drawing or do we not want to scale our drawing? So once we've identified, we can just make a note of it. We don't have to scale it. I'm going to scale it in this example for you guys just so I can show you how it is possible to do. So if we want to scale, what we can first do is we can select over all of our objects. So we can see they're all highlighted there. What we then can do is type scale, enter. And you can see down the bottom left-hand corner, it's asking us to specify the base point. When scaling, you always want to specify relative to the origin of the drawing, which is, of course, 0, 0, 0, which is 0 using 0 ordering and obviously 0 elevation. So once we've entered that, we can select enter. And then it's asking for a scale or a reference factor. So if we want to go from millimeters to meters, it is 0.001 because that's how many points we want to move the decimal point, just to make it easier to remember. So if I select enter, so we cannot see our information anymore. So some of the information has been left here. So what I can now do is go zoom, Z, enter, E, enter. Okay, and zoom out so I can see a bit of information down here. Okay, so the fact though that we did Z, enter, E, enter, zoom, extents, and it brought us that far back out means there are entities within this drawing now that are further away than others. So that's an important note to make as well. We don't want that to happen before we bring our CAD file into our field software, because especially with our field software, we'll try to present a zoom extents upon first import of any reference file. So again, then you might get a situation where a user cannot identify his information or he cannot find his information because the zoom extensors, because there's an object at base point or just a drawing or a drawing object that is left to the side by a designer that they missed. So again, identifying that prior to moving out into the field software is important. So once we're happy that we've scaled our drawing, so what we can do then is we can take distance again along the grid just quickly, and I can see 8.003. So I know my drawing's in meters now. So that's we're happy enough now. I can also ID another point. So you can repeat a couple of these steps if you need to. So ID, and now I can see 6 digits, 714.618.584. I can see that I've 6 digits per decimal point, which looks correct both in the easting and in the northing. So it's important to check both. Another point to note to make then as well is that we can see the Z is 0. So it's a flat 2D drawing. Okay, so again, if you're trying to bring in 3D information, whether it's for setting out for roads or you want to input into a machine control, you need to identify first whether your information is in 3D or is in fact 2D. So the majority of the time, most setting out on sites is in 2D, but again, we just need to understand our drawing and make note of these things prior to bringing them into our field software. So moving on then, the next step within the workflow then is to specify whether there's any externally referenced information. To check, is the information that I can see on my screen actually within this file and it's not just an external reference. So how I can do that is by typing xref, enter. And you can see there, it's identified that there's an xref file that was not found. Okay, so I can see the name and the path. So again, this would be quite common for designers or guys working on drawings to externally reference in different pieces of information, and they think they're transferring over all of the information, but they might not actually get it across to you. So they might not remember to set it, or they might send you the full folder and it has an extra file in it. So we need to identify what is which. So generally what I like to do is, if I scout around my drawing at the start and I realize, okay, I'm missing a bit of information, then I will return back to the drawing originator and request this information. And it might be a case of it's just an external reference and it didn't come across. But if they did not send it, what I will do is I will detach, okay, and remove it out of the drawing. So what I can then do is, once we're happy that I have all the information I want within the file and that there are no externally referenced information, so everything I see on my screen in front of me here is in this drawing. The next step then would be to come to the Home tab and open up your Layer Manager. So within Layer Manager, so I can see all the different layers that are in my site. So subdividing the elements that are within my drawing. So the tip and trick I like to use is I'll right click on one of my layers and I'll select all. What I'll then do is, within any CAD package, which you'll always have the light bulb symbol for switching information on or off, making it visible, locking, unlocking, or freezing layers, and also the different line types for those specified layers. So generally what I like to do is, if I switch it all off and then switch it all back on, now I know that everything is on in my drawing. And the same with, you can see I have a locked layer here and another one at the top. If I lock and then unlock, we can see now that they are all unlocked, and the same right the way across. Okay, and then what I'll also like to do is set my line types to continuous. You'll see there you have some dash dot, or some designers will actually create their customized line types, and these might not always transfer well into field setting out software. So continuous is a generic CAD line type that we know will transfer in well. So what we'll do is we'll just set all of the line types to continuous. So what we've now done is we've unlocked all the information. We've made sure that everything is visible and present within the drawing and that we can now manipulate it. So I can see if I highlight and try to select one of the buildings here that a lot of information is selected. So that's telling me now it's in a block. So for guys that don't understand what a block is, if you have these drawing lines, okay, they are individual lines, but what we can do is we can group them together into what's called a block and create a single object out of them. We do not want this coming into our field software because it could be a case that we want to select one of our lines for setting out, okay, and it might just be a case then when we select it in the field software that the whole block highlights, and that isn't what we want. So again, unlocking all the layers, making everything visible gives us a clear indication of everything that's within our drawing, and now we can manipulate it. So following on from Layer Manager, down in the steps, our next one is to explode the drawing. So what I can then do is I can type explode, enter, select over all of my information that I'm interested in, and confirm and select enter again. Now I can see if I select one of the lines here, it's just a single line is selecting and not the entire block. The next thing we need to do is we need to identify what exact information we are looking to take out of this drawing and into our field software. So the majority of the issues that happen with field controllers out on site is that we overload them with too much information. So we can clearly see from this drawing that from a setting out purpose, the majority of this is not of use. Okay, so what we need to do then is it's easier to identify what we want to take out as opposed to what we don't want to take out. So this is a little that I like to use myself. So the next one then is to use the layer freeze command. So up within the home tab, you can see under layers, we have a symbol here, layer freeze. It just looks like a sheet with a snowflake. If I select that there now what I can do is I can go around and I can select empty. So I want to take the grid. I might want to take the road outside just to give a bit of context. I think I've actually taken too much there, so I might just have to redo that again. And I might want to actually just take this building line. Okay, so but you can see there automatically I'm pulling out all of these dimensions, labels, hatching that I really have not got any interest in. It doesn't carry any weight in terms of setting out. So what I can then do is I'm left with all this information. I can drag over and delete. Okay, which is the next step, but I will go and just redo that one more time. And the next step then would be to thaw all layers. You can see the sun symbol with multiple layers and our information comes back. But automatically we can see that the drawing is a lot cleaner. Okay, so I'll just repeat the process and just to make sure that I'm not carrying over any unnecessary information. Okay, because I do not want any of this external information. I'll just repeat the process. Okay, and again, we might still be left with elements that we don't necessarily want. Okay, so and this works as well as how well the designer actually split the information within the layers. So you might still get a case where you still need to come around and delete a lot of this information. So we'll just say, for instance, that I'm really actually only interested in the grids. I might just want to take across the grids. Okay, and we can see we actually have a couple of control points here on site. So now that I have those other switched off, and it's a lot easier now, we can see to clean up some of the information that is within the drawing. That's okay. So we'll just thaw all the layers now. And we can see now we have a nice clean information. So we have some control points on the drawing. Now I will always recommend that these control points do come in and they are important to field software in their own file. So that could involve extracting these points out into a text file or an Excel file for bringing out on the site. But what we can now do is we can again, I always like to keep checking. So if I just ID a point, I'll just double check my coordinates again, and I'll just double check another distance. So we can see 15 meters, so 2 grids across, 7.5. So manipulated, we froze layers that we had of interest. Then what we did is we could tile the layers, but delete the remaining information first that we're not interested in. So what I will say is that you always want to have your information saved in 2 or 3 different places. So I'm not going to start manipulating the drawing and altering that CAD file unless I know that I have that actually the source information in an email or somewhere else saved. Okay. Next, what I like to do is I actually like to transfer this information into a blank drawing. Okay. So the reason I like to do that is it just ensures that we do not import any unwanted elements which may still be present within the model space. Okay, because it could be a case that I've missed something could have slipped past me. So what I can then do is I can literally just select over all of my elements, right click, I can go to clipboard, copy with base point, and just select any element on your drawing. Okay, I will then come across to the start page, open a new drawing. Okay, so we have a new drawing model space open here now. And then I can right click, clipboard, paste to original coordinates. So we can see the command paste original has come in there. So that means that the command is complete. So now I'll go Z, enter, E, enter, zoom extents. And you remember the last time we did zoom extents, it brought us miles back out and we actually couldn't find our information. So now when I do zoom extents, I know that's within what is within this drawing. And what's going to come into my model space within my field software is exactly what I can see on the screen there now. So as a habit, I just like to confirm and I like to run through a couple of steps again. So what I will do is I'll explode this information one more time just by reselecting over all of it, enter. And another command I like to use is purge. Okay, so what purge will do, so I just want to purge orphaned items, purge nested items. But what purge will do is purge will clean up any kind of dead, empty, hollow information. So empty layers that there's now nothing in or anything of the sort like that out of our drawing. So it's just a cleanup tool. Okay. We don't want to, I'm not going to tick this option because I don't want to confirm something because there could be multiple and I could be there for a while. So once I've ticked these two, I can select purge all and close. Okay. Now if I go into my layer manager, I can see there's a lot less layers here now than there was previously, meaning I've cleaned up this file significantly. And what it's also important to note is your drawing size. Okay, you should always make note of your drawing size prior to bringing it in on import because that will give you a better understanding of how your particular unit actually handles this information and kind of what your file size limit is. Okay, so once we're happy with that, and again, I like to double check, triple check, so I'll just select an element, maybe select a couple of elements just to make sure that the individual points actually highlight. And then what I'll again do is I'll just double check ID, and it could be a case that we know what the coordinates of these control points are, so it's never a bad idea just to jump in again, just checking those coordinates against what you know them to be. Once you're happy now that your drawing is cleaned up, okay, you're ready for export. So we jump up to File, Export, DXF out, go to just throw this onto the desktop, and I'll just call it CAD Drawing Prep. Okay, first thing to note then as well is you can see there's multiple forms of DXF, okay, and they kind of go by year. So personally, I always like to use 2013 ASCII DXF. That is from personal experience, but I've never really ran into different issues. So the different versions kind of can handle information differently and slightly better in terms of interchanging from desktop software into field software. So if you run into a case where you're having difficulties on import or something's not transferring correctly, it's not a bad option to actually look at just saving it into a different version and then bringing it again into your field controller, and it might resolve your issue. I am using DXF, which is short for digital exchange format, as opposed to DWG. The reason being, DXF will carry just the raw geometric entity, so points, lines, text, symbols across, as opposed to with a DWG, a drawing file, you're going to be bringing on a lot more information like drawing templates and stuff that sit in the background. Now, I know that ICON's latest releases will handle DWG, but we are still making the recommendation for to export DXF and bring into your field softwares. So once you're happy with that, we can press save, okay, and that is us complete. So again, as I was saying at the start, that this flow will work for the vast majority of cases. There could be instances where you need to redo a couple of steps a couple of times, or it might take to explode 2 or 3 times, for instance. This isn't an issue, but if you are running into difficulties and this video hasn't been able to help you, please feel free to get in touch with us at any point. Thanks for your time.